Welcome back to Dragon Army Books. My name is Dustin, and in preparation for the final book in the Ender's saga that is coming out at the end of this year called The Last Shadow, I am reading and rereading the entire catalog that is related to Ender and Bean, the story that began with Ender's game. And I have so far read and reviewed the Formic War, both the first and the second, the series that is associated with both of those, which has led up to Ender's Game, the key core novel, which I just recently finished, read, and reviewed. And then here today, talking about my reread, fourth, fifth, sixth reread of another one of my favorites in the saga, Ender's Shadow. Ender's Shadow is a parallel novel to Ender's Game. It takes place a little bit before and then in conjunction with the story that is taking place in Ender's Game, but from a completely new perspective. It's a character from Ender's Game, but one that really doesn't show up until late in the story. It is the POV of little Bean. Bean is an orphaned boy on the streets of Rotterdam, barely surviving. In fact, I believe he's only 2 years old at the beginning of this book, completely malnutritioned, close to death, starving. So he joins a little street gang of other orphaned kids just to survive. From there, he manages to make a few friends, a few enemies as well, but his brilliance, his intelligence, his intellect, the way that he's able to deal with his peers and the adults that they come into contact with at food kitchens, manages to keep him and his friends alive. This intelligence is eventually noticed by a nun named Sister Carlotta, who kind of takes Bean and a few of the other intelligent kids and begins to teach them and train them to see if any of them would be good contestants or contenders for battle school. Bean eventually gets selected, finds himself launching out into space, and he's never hungry, starving, or near death, in the same way at least, again, as he goes into battle school as a launchy, joins armies, eventually meets up with Ender, and the rest is history. A parallel novel is something that I would imagine has to be extremely difficult to do. You've already told the story. It's got to be difficult to tell it again from a different perspective and not just tell the same story. Or not to have at least some of this, because we're hitting a lot of the same moments, not all by any means, but a good portion of some of the key battles or moments in Ender's Game, here again in Ender's Shadow. It could feel like just a retelling and just a money grab of a novel. And this novel is far, far from that. But in Ender's Shadow, we really get an entirely new story and an entirely new cast of characters. I feel like most of it is done just as well as Ender's Shadow. There are a few areas that fall a little bit short. Like how Ender kind of had Bonzo Madrid as a foil. Here, Bean's foil is a Shields, a kid that he met on the streets of Rotterdam that is someone that he comes into contact with again later. The resolution there isn't as powerful, as strong, or as meaningful as Ender and Bonzo's. It felt a little too quick and a little rushed and a little flat there. But besides that, for most other moments, they work really well. I guess one other thing that bothered me a little bit is that Bean is kind of more intelligent than everybody, and you start to begin to realize that. The way that they soften it so that he isn't the main player, still allowing Ender to have his, have his stage, because it's not Bean's shadow, it's Ender's shadow, allowing him to still have his stage. There's a few times in the book where Bean was joking about something or being sarcastic about something, but that led a teacher, a professor, or even Ender himself to make a decision that was the right decision. And the novel always makes sure that we know that Bean was being sarcastic or joking. I think that's a little bit of a hard sell there. Why not just make him the intelligent player behind the scenes? But again, I'm being nitpicky here. I think this is an excellent, excellent novel. I wouldn't encourage anyone to start here. I think the impact is there because I know the story from the other perspective. So I would always encourage someone to read Ender's Game first, and then to read Ender's Shadow, actually, and then to determine which route you would like to go, because Ender's Shadow does a lot of setup for the rest of the Shadow series. Ender's Game doesn't do really any setup except maybe that final chapter for the rest of the Ender series. But after reading both Ender's Game and Ender's Shadow, I could look at someone and say, okay, would you like to stay on Earth and see what the political turnout is from the success of the war, or would you like to stay out in space, stay with Ender, and see how he goes about helping to colonize and do those things? That will determine your branch and your path as you continue the saga. Now, for me, I'm going to do both. It's another 5 out of 5 stars for me. A lot of it might be nostalgia with this one, but still, I think it's an excellent, excellent, excellent book. Love the character of Bean. Love his story. Love his time with Petra, Dink, and Sister Carlotta and others. And so I'm really interested, again, to go through the Shadow Saga, which used to be my favorite, more even than Ender's continuing story. But we'll have to see. I'm a grown man now, so things might have changed. Did you read and enjoy or hate, or are you ambivalent about Ender's Shadow? Let me know down in the comments below. Let's dialogue about the parallel novel to one of my favorite novels of all time. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch and like this video. If you haven't yet, click subscribe, join the Dragon Army, and we'll see you in the next one.